Have any of you had the thoughts of being famous, or what would you be like, or what kind of person would you be when you were famous, or what you would be famous for? Everyone's had these thoughts and everyone is curious about it, but not everyone reaches to the point where they're famous in their lifetime. When I was in fourth grade in elementary school, I had an art class that was very short, but at one period of time, we learned about Vincent van Gogh. And it was very curious to me how he lived his entire life knowing that he was a painter and he had a passion about it, but he never really was able to get the credibility that he deserved in his lifetime because when he became famous, he had already passed away. So not everybody knows the basics of his story, but I would like to go into the details. Some of the things I'll be talking about today is his struggle to find his passion for art, his beginnings with painting and how he got started, and the struggles that he had with his mental health. So when he was younger, he has about a brother and a few sisters, I believe, and he went to elementary school for a while and he struggled a lot with it, but he decided to continue by going to secondary school. But he only lasted about a year until he dropped out, and that was only about when he was 13 years old. So he went around searching for careers, searching for a passion that he wanted, and he ended up working for his uncle at a bookstore for a while, and then he decided that he would like to be a preacher. So he went and studied to become a preacher, and he ended up going to a coal mine town where he helped the people there. But he discovered that it wasn't really his passion, he wasn't good at it, or the people didn't think he was good at it. His nickname was Christ of the Coal Mine for a while, but he decided that it wasn't the lifestyle that he wanted, and he returned to his parents' house. So his brother was his true friend for his entire lifetime. And when he returned home, his brother started helping support Vincent, and he would send him money. His brother was living in Paris, and he was a businessman, so he was able to support himself, his family, and Vincent. So they started sending letters back and forth, and this is how we know the information about him. He has several letters to his brother and his family, and they've all been recorded and found. So he would draw little sketches in his art, or in his letters, to give his brother more of an idea of what he was going through. So some of his first drawings were the sketches and the letters, and then one day his brother mentioned that he should maybe start finding his passion in art and maybe pursue something more from his sketches. So he started painting, and his painting style at first turned into something that was rather a bit darker, and he had many sketchbooks and many dark oil paintings. So he began taking many art classes to try and figure out what kind of style he wanted, and he ended up getting commissions and being able to make a little money, but not very much. And one of the names for the painters of that time that were in his class were peasant painters. So he ended up spending most of the money that his brother gave him and that he made on his paintings buying painting supplies rather than food. So he ended up being rather poor and painting and trying to pour his life into this passion of his. It ended up where he wasn't able to support himself, and he thought it would be best to move in with his brother in Paris. So when he moved in, he began to get the influence from France, and he was able to change his art style into something more colorful. And this is when we started getting the Van Gogh paintings that we start to recognize in the style with his color and more of a scenery sort of thing. After he moved to Paris, he lived there for a few years, and he decided that he would like to live in the country again. So he moved to a house, and he decided that he would like to have like a sort of art community. So he invited a few friends, and only one of them ended up living with him, and this was Paul Gagaway. And it was a very nice time for him at first, and then they started disagreeing about their art and started to have many disagreements to the point where Vincent was going through sort of a mental state, and he threatened his roommate with a razor, and that's when he ended up cutting off his ear, which not some people know about, but some people don't. And he was admitted to the hospital, and he ended up spending a year in a psychiatric hospital where he painted 150 paintings, and most commonly, the Starry Night he painted in his psychiatric hospital. So once he got out of the hospital, he continued painting, but his mental state continued to deteriorate, and he ended up committing suicide on the 27th of July, and he died by going out into a wheat field and shooting himself in the chest, where he then later died 2 days later because of his injuries. This was the last painting he ever painted, and this is believed to be the wheat field that he did commit suicide in. So his life was full of many struggles, and it was a shame that he wasn't able to get the credibility that he has now in his lifetime. It's interesting to think of how, if he was famous when he was alive, how it would have changed his life. So, my last question for you is, what do you think you would be famous for, or what would you want to be famous for? And just think of the ways that maybe you will be famous after you've passed away. Thank you.